can't actually see whether it's recording.
Yeah, the recording started now. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to today's presentation, which is all about creating healthy daily habits. So our mental and our physical well-being really matter. So having a plan in place and creating morning and evening rituals that really work for you and your life are really important. So my name is Ailsa Hitchens and I'm a registered nutritional therapist, mindset and health coach. So I will be talking a little tiny bit about nutrition today, but mostly I'm going to be talking about the lifestyle aspect, because one of the things that I do when I'm working with my private clients is we're looking at the lifestyle piece massively makes a difference to how good it feels to be you and how you show up in your life. So a little look at what we're going to be doing specifically today. We'll be looking at how you can re-establish balance. I'll be looking at some of the important elements for emotional and mental well-being. We'll be looking at self-care, very much talked about at this time of year with that sort of HIG vibe going on. So we'll be looking at what that actually means and why it matters and how you can translate this into your life. We'll be looking at where exercise fits into it all. And mindfulness and gratitude are so important for helping us create the kind of life that feels good to live. I'll be touching, because I can't help myself as a nutritionist, on some very simple steps that you can take to nourish your body, and then looking at those evening rituals for the evening rituals and morning rituals that can make a big difference to how you experience your life. And of course, you know, whatever people's social media feeds will tell us, you know, real life does happen and it's quite normal to feel blue or sad some of the time. So we'll be looking at those emergency measures that you can take if you're not feeling so great. So really just very, very briefly, it was Blue Monday a couple of days ago. And, you know, when you're feeling blue, it's a normal part of life, that sort of ebb and flow. Nobody is happy all of the time. But what's obviously to know is that there are some things that cause you to feel a little bit blue, whether that's female hormones, and it's now a recognised symptom of perimenopause, the sort of low mood, side effects of some drugs. But the big thing to take away here is that many of the symptoms of feeling stressed and a little bit overwhelmed are also the same as having low mood. So it becomes a vicious circle, that when we're not feeling so great, this stress reduces that happy hormone serotonin. It also depletes the pleasure hormone dopamine. So things very quickly when you're stressed mean that you're not making the best food and lifestyle choices, and it becomes a vicious circle leading to more stress on the body. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, rather conveniently, they're good for lifting the mood, but they're also good for helping empty the stress bucket. And of course, it is a normal part of life to feel sadness sometimes, but sadness usually has a cause. So if there's no obvious triggers for you, and if you're finding that, you know, you have that lingering feeling, then it is worth seeking out the people in your organisation to find out what resources are available for you. The Samaritans, they have their Brew Monday for Blue Monday, and they offer free 24/7 support if you don't want to talk to your own GP. So that is the, you know, that's the beginning of what I wanted to say to sort of set the stall out. But there's so much that we can do through creating little morning, evening, daily practices in our life that can help make the experience of being us the best it can possibly be. Now, the very first place to start, and I do this a lot with my private clients, is we're looking at, before you can really get into what do I want to do, is just thinking about where you might be out of balance. So what is in your life that is not really working the way you want? What things do you love? What things do you not love? So you can't make a plan to change anything unless you started that process of acknowledging what is out of balance. So daily life will comprise, of course, lots of activities, lots of tasks. It will be a blend of those things that interest you and others that really frustrate you, but they're necessary as part of modern day living. So part of the challenge is in working out for ourselves what those activities are. And I want you to imagine an old-fashioned set of scales like this. So on the one hand, you have those things that are energizing and you don't love to do, and those things that deplete you. So I'm going to be sending over to your HR department a little PDF that you might like to have a look at, which just gives you some of these notes for this first exercise that I'm going to talk you through in a moment. So imagining those scales, what we want to do is we want to have a balance of those things that some clarity on how things are for you right now, not to be in a place of judgment, but to just really acknowledge how things are right now, where the time is going, and how much of your time you're spending on doing these things is going to really help you create a plan going forward. So before actually we go into this, I want to say that there's quite a lot of content that I'm talking about today, and it would be impossible to take on all of these things. So I'd love for you all to do this energetic balance quiz. I'll give you some instructions in a moment, but also of the other things, which are the pillars of feeling great and creating those routines that work for your life. You couldn't possibly do all of them in one go. So I want you to be listening out for what else really resonates, what else really jumps out as an important thing to do, because you will uniquely know how it feels to be you and where you might be out of balance. But it's a great place to start here at the beginning. So really this exercise might take you about half an hour. So I'm just going to talk you through it now, but there will be some instructions coming later. So it's best completed in a quiet, comfortable space with journal or a notepad, and importantly, this is just for you. So whenever you're doing journaling, particularly if you're new to journaling, this isn't for other people, it's for nobody else's eyes, no one's getting a mark out of 10, but it's just for you to gain clarity on where the time is going and how much of it is serving you and what is taking away. And then the job to do is to change some of the things where you're out of balance. So it seems a really obvious thing. And actually what I know from working with people one-to-one is oftentimes the simplest things are overlooked because they seem almost so simple. And this sort of internal reflection on how it is to be us is often something that is sacrificed or not thought about because of the busy. Now, humans are programmed to love winning. So this is the beauty of micro commitments. It means that you can evolve slowly, because this is how healthy habits are created, by taking on something, getting really good at it, fitting it into your life so that it works. And then you can take on the next thing, and this gradual layering of stuff, of actions, of positive actions that you're taking in your life. Before you know it, you've really created a lovely set of new habits. This is very much about evolution and not about revolution. So I want you to think about, and I will be sending the questions separately, answering these questions. So there was going to be 4 in total, and I seem to have gone a little bit ahead of myself there. So the first one is just a little reflection on, I feel my best when I am. So let me give you some examples of what that might look like. It might be something like, I feel my best when I'm well rested, when I'm being creative, when I'm feeling purposeful, when I exercise daily. So you will write down anything that comes to mind and leave a decent bit of space, because this is worth coming back to this exercise after a little while and seeing what else is there. Now, in coaching, what is interesting is when we get the most gold, if you like, from people, is not the first thing to come out of their mouth. It's then with the question, what else? So apply that to yourself. So do the exercise and then come back and think about, what else could I add? What else, when you've had further thought? And then the flip side is that I feel low in energy, sad, angry, anxious, or worried when. So that might look like when I have poor sleep, when I don't allow myself to take a break at work, when I let the home admin build up, when I'm grumpy with the children, whatever that is for you. It's not important what's on your list, but just that you approach this with a degree of honesty. And remember that the paper is for your eyes only. Now, back to the good stuff again. So I feel calm, peaceful, and at ease, or a sense of love or appreciation with the world. I can be fully present when ... So it might be, it could be walking in nature, spending time with my children, when I'm even engrossed in a good book. And I feel excited, joyful, empowered, inspired when I make time to exercise, when I meet up with my friends often, when I go to creative events or exhibitions. So it's really important to get all of this down, because unless you're clear with actually what's going on and what you want for your life and what's in your space, it's really hard to be able to go forward in any kind of way. So this is the first exercise. So you'll review your answers, and especially to question 2. So question 2, I wonder how much time you are actually spending. So when you do the exercise for yourself and you come back to it, just notice without judgment how much time you spend on those things that actually really drain you. You might notice that you feel angry or overwhelmed by home tasks. And then in that case, we're thinking about, what can you do potentially, not definitely, but explore the possibilities. Is there anything that could counterbalance these depleting activities? So could it be, for example, that you could share out more of the home task if they make you angry, grumpy, they overwhelm you? Could you share things out with family members? Are there things that you could perhaps outsource if that's in your budget? Maybe you've not considered before. You're thinking about what actually really matters to you. And it might be that actually what you could do to counterbalance isn't offloading to anyone else. It's not spending any money, but it's just choosing, can I be okay that ironing pile is never getting down to 0? And choosing to be okay with that. And the flip side, of course, is, thinking about what actually fulfills you. So what really lights you up? And again, going back to that concept of those energetic scales, of the things that energize you and the things that drag you down. How much time are you spending doing the things that you love to do, the things that restore you or nourish you? And in both cases, in fact, let's stay on this for a second. I mean, imagine you had like a diary that's got all the, the ones with the hourly slots, and you've got little stickies, little post-it notes, other things are available. And imagine you have some of those joyful things, some of the things that make you, really nourish you. And if they were sort of 10-minute activities, and you had your diary in front of you, where might you be able to slot things in? Because many of us spend a lot more time, for example, flicking through the TV channels, not with any intention to watch anything specific, just for want of anything better to do, or similarly on social media. And I'm not saying that any of these things are wrong, but when you're clear on the things that really nourish you, it's just interesting to see where you might be able to slip in just little bits of time. Now, what's important with those things that really deplete you and those things that really fulfill you is you're clear on what they are, but also you make a plan to change. So remember I was saying about evolution, not revolution. We're not trying to do lots of things in one go, but we're thinking, what specific action can you take? Because remember, goals are quite specific. If you want something to change, you have to be really clear about what it is, and also give it a time frame. So keep it simple, keep it clear, and with a time frame. So it might be, for example, I'm going to call Sally on Tuesday at 1 p.m. while I walk around the block on my lunch break. Or it might be that you're thinking, well, okay, I love I love it when I have more time to exercise. It might be, well, I'll speak to my partner about picking up the kids from school so I can go for a swim on Thursday before tea, something like that. So thinking about not only what fulfills you and what depletes you and how much of those activities that you're doing, but thinking about a couple of specific steps that you might be able to take to redress that balance. And this brings me really neatly into self-care. So I have been here before, maybe we've met, maybe we haven't. But if we have met, you will know that I'm a big fan of creating a list of things that you can do for your own self-care. So self-care is that recognition that you are 100% responsible for your own happiness. And of course, other people can contribute to it. But really what that is if you make some time to do something just for you and just for the joy of doing it, rather than in order to every day, and that ties in with those things that fulfill you, then how you experience your life is much better than if you're literally just going through it from sort of getting up in the morning to, you know, kids or work or back, or without taking the time to put those little snippets of things just for you. Now, when you've done that first exercise, all the rest of this, all these other suggestions are for you to just be with, okay, well, what seems like the next logical step? So be listening out for that. Now, if you know that you're the kind of person who doesn't really do much for themselves, I invite you to brainstorm what you love to do. Now, this is a really excellent and interesting exercise. So when I'm working with my clients, well, often it will feel like it's a struggle. It may well feel like that for you, because oftentimes people have become so disconnected in the busy of life that it can become so disconnected with what they love to do that when they're asked to create a list, so I invite you, if this is you, to create a list of 20 things that you could do just for the joy of doing it. So it's not exercise. Exercise is a separate thing. Exercise is very important for your health, emotional and mental well-being, but it's in a slightly different category. So these are things that really help empty the stress bucket, and they can be things that are doing things like, you know, I love to go ice skating. It could be I love to read a book. I love to have a really hot shower or a steamy bath with candles, or I love to watch reruns of Friends. I love to sit and have a cup of tea first thing in the morning in the garden. So all of those things, they don't have to take a long time, they don't have to cost. But building up a bank of as many things as you can think of is a really great idea. So you'll want to be working towards 20. And what I want you to know is it's an active list. So firstly, you're coming up with a list, and then you're making sure you do at least one of those things every single day without fail. Now, this I know from working with people on the full food and lifestyle piece, that if ever they start going off and, you know, eating foods and living in a way that's not really aligned with what they want for themselves, I know that one of the things that is bound to have happened is they will not be taking care of their stress relief by doing these little small acts of self-care. So look and see if that's you. I invite you to start making that list, but it's an active list. So one of my clients used to love dancing around the kitchen to her 80s music, and she also really loved jigsaws. But then a couple of months down the line, she was so sick to death of jigsaws because she'd done quite a lot of them and she was loving it, and then she was like, I'm done with the jigsaws, and she then went on to something else. So it's an active list, and it's good to check in with these things regularly enough. Let's say, you know, for the avoidance of doubt, let's say every couple of months you might want to revisit the things that really light you up and just see, you know, so ask yourself, where am I right now? Now, another pillar that's important for getting somehow into your weekly ritual, daily ritual if you have the time, is moving in a way your body loves. So we know that exercise plays a key part in good health. It plays a key part in beating the blues. And actually, there's a number of good quality studies that have shown that people who exercise between about half an hour to an hour 3 to 5 times a week actually had a 5-point reduction in their Hamilton rating scale, which of course is the scale that is widely used to diagnose depression. So that's more than double what you would normally expect from antidepressants. So if you're feeling down or demotivated, it can seem as though it's a struggle to actually, get up and get moving. But if you can just bring yourself to do it, the rewards really can be very profound. So we know that exercise, one of the ways that exercise works is it increases blood flow to the brain. So it increases the levels of serotonin and dopamine, both very feel-good hormones. And dopamine also helps create that sense of motivation. It can also help you sleep better. And I have got some things that I'm going to talk about sleep briefly in a moment. And we all know that when you wake up feeling rested because you've had the right amount of sleep for you, then everything feels better. So I have a lot to say about sleep, and I'm going to condense it into just a small bit. But ultimately, when you exercise helps you sleep better because it burns through some of the stress hormones. It burns off excess adrenaline. Now, there is a bit of a point to say about when you exercise in terms of sleep, because if you're exercising quite late and you're doing quite high intensity exercise, let's say spinning or a HIIT workout, and you're thinking you're going to go to bed at 10 o'clock, but you're doing that exercise at 8 o'clock, because exercise is a positive stressor, so it's a good thing for the body, but it does put the body under some stress, then it could be that it's interfering with your sleep. So listen out for, if sleep is a missing piece, if it's a bit wonky, then it might be something that you'll want to look at. And what we also know is actually consistency with everything. Being perfect for a very short period of time doesn't work, whether it's in movement, in lifestyle, in food. What we know is being healthy-ish most of the time is the way to go. And it's much more achievable to set that as to set the bar lower so that you can achieve it. And remember that sort of winning. We love to win. So set yourself, if you're not a person who is currently exercising very much, find something that you like to do. So it doesn't have to be the obvious choices. And, if it works and if you're struggling, then one thing that you might like to do is just think about what you used to love to do. So when was the point that exercise stopped being fun? Because children, right, they're playing hopscotch, they're running around in the playground, they're, doing all of those kind of things. Admittedly, for many of us like me, that's going back quite a long way. But if you're a person who doesn't love exercise, perhaps backtrack to what you did used to love when you did used to do it, or be open to trying some new things. And if you can exercise outdoors, then it's a win-win situation, because being outdoors means that the sensors in your eyes are sort of open and ready to receive serotonin. So one of the reasons that people get SAD, the seasonal affective disorder, at this time of year is because of the light levels. So the weather is miserable, we're not going outside as much, so we're not getting the vitamin D on our skin. Vitamin D from the sunlight activates the genes for serotonin. So being outside is a win-win situation. So if you are during work, if you have a break, if the circumstances work for you, using that lunch break strategically to actually get outdoors, not necessarily to be, not necessarily to go anywhere, just to be is enough. So you don't have to be in a park, in nature, although we know that, if you are near green spaces, we do know that another thing that's very good for lifting the mood is people report being out in nature really works. Also being having your feet in the grass, obviously not an activity that you would be doing now, but just something to bear in mind in the future. And regularly exercising as well encourages that whole lifting of those feel-good hormones. Now, again, if you know that this is a missing piece for you, then you might want to make this your priority. Now, one of the things that I think is possibly the easiest to do, and it can have such profound and surprising results, is practicing gratitude. So many people, when I start talking about gratitude, are a little bit skeptical. It's one of those things that, you know, the vegans and the yoga people do, you know, those kind of people from way back when. Of course, this is all much more mainstream now, isn't it? But practicing gratitude effectively, it's not about not acknowledging being sad. It's not about trying not to think about things when you're going through tough times. But it's about, the brain is obviously a very, very complex organ, but in some ways it's surprisingly simplistic in that you can't possibly focus on the good and the bad at any one time. And if you think about when people talk about, you know, bad luck coming in threes, it's exactly the same principle. So it's not that it's a rule that bad luck comes in threes, but it's about our perception and how we're thinking. So the reason why that works is something will happen. I don't know, let's say you break a mug at breakfast. You know, you're annoyed, you're frustrated, it's a bad thing. So you're then on heightened alert looking out for the next thing. By the time the second thing's happened, you're certain, because bad luck comes in threes, that there's something else around the corner that's going to go wrong. So the more we're looking for it, you know, the more that we focus on, the more we are going to find. And it's exactly the opposite of what we're doing here. So practicing gratitude, apologies for this, practicing gratitude can be as simple as this. Now, I am a big believer in finding the cheat codes so that we can get the maximum benefit from these interventions without having to spend a lot of extra time. And it's going to be some time because you're going to have to do something slightly differently. It's going to be some brain time, but without having to put too much pressure on your already busy day. So there was a lady who wrote a fantastic book she was called Pam Grant. The book was Thank and Grow Rich. And I've taken this exercise directly from her, and I use it a lot with clients when we're working on that lifestyle piece. So before you've even swung your legs out of bed in the day, tell yourself something amazing is going to happen. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be fantastic. So that's almost setting your GPS for the day. And of course, the skeptics among you, I was one too, you might be thinking, yeah, right. You might even look back on the day and say, well, what was amazing? But given that it's not taking you any extra time, you're going to wake up, you're going to open your eyes, set your internal GPS for success, and then you're more likely to be on the lookout out of curiosity for what the amazing thing is going to be, which means you're more open to the possibility of something being different. It's very easy to get very fixed in the way things are. Things are a certain way, and of course that isn't true. They can seem, they can occur to us at certain times that they are a certain way. But when we open our mind to the possibility that something might be different, things can start to shift. And here is another thing. So this is more cheat codes. So it's another activity, but it's something that you can multitask. Okay, so while you're going around your daily business, just doing what you're doing, try and make a point of seeking out the good side in every situation. And there almost always will be one. But here's the deal. You've got to comment either out loud or to yourself. You're noting it. So let's take for an example how this might look. So you're in your car, it's pouring down with rain, you've got to go to the place, it's a traffic jam, you're clearly going to be late. It would be very easy to be sitting in that situation feeling really, really wound up that, you know, that things aren't going the way that you want. Oh, someone's saying the slides aren't moving. Oh, right. Oh, I'm sorry about this. I'm moving the slides, but I can't see whether the slides are moving. Is anyone else having that problem?
Yeah, so for me, it's just stuck on slide 3.
Oh dear. Right.
Me too.
Oh, has anyone got any emergency advice? I'm so sorry for that. I wonder.
I mean, to be honest, I was that engrossed, I didn't notice for a while.
Oh
I can
God.
see it now. You're on a practicing gratitude slide.
Oh, can you? You know, well, we'll have to do it like this. It's not ideal. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I had it on the slideshow view, and I was really enjoying it. I'm so sorry.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so going back to the car. Sorry about that. So we're going back to the car. So you can see how very easily that would be. You know, you could be in a whole world of pain with that situation. But if you turn it on its head, and you know you're stuck in the car anyway, and you can choose how it's going to go. So you could choose that you're going to have a miserable time. You're going to be really wound up by the time you get to wherever you're going, because you know things are the way they are, and your life is like this and it is like that. But if you choose instead, okay, as an exercise, look and see, you know, what could we find that could be good? So it's pouring down with rain. Okay, I'm in the traffic jam. Oh, I can see some of their umbrellas blown inside out. You know, their umbrella's completely broken. They're soaking through. I'm in my nice, warm, dry car with someone at a bus stop. I'm grateful that I have my car. You know, I am grateful that I'm listening to the radio to drive time, or whatever it is. So it's a really interesting exercise to do, actually. And it's not that bad things aren't going to happen, but we have a choice about how we respond. So the stuff is going to be the stuff, and we can 100% choose how we show up in that situation. And you could extend it to, you know, to other people. There might be people who, you know, who you dread seeing because you already know how it's going to go. They're going to say the thing and that's going to get you wound up. But if you choose to be open to something different happening, and try and, you know, try and see, just be open to the worst not happening, can be surprisingly interesting actually when dealing with other people. So that's just an extension there, because when you give up knowing how it's going to go, then your experience can be very different. Now, one of the things that's quite nice, so this is something that, this is a little extra thing. So the thing before you can do without having any real impact on your life in terms of how much extra time. But one of the things that's quite nice is to start bookending your day with gratitude. So we've done the swinging legs out of bed. If you want to, this is an extension exercise. If you like the idea of that, one of the things that you could do is to have a little journal. It's a fancy way of saying a notebook. It doesn't really much matter. And just jot down a couple of things that you're really grateful for at the end of the day. And that can really work. So the kind of thing that you're looking for there, again, it's a piece of, you know, I'm never looking for the little niggles that I might have. So we all have niggles with our life, whether it's about dosh or work or, you know, arguments with partners or things that haven't gone well. They never end up on my list. But what's quite nice is to think about, you know, the things that have gone well, whether it's just snuggling up with a partner or the kids, watching a film, whether it's, you know, looking at your lovely fluffy cat. You know, so it's nice to do that as a little extra activity at the end of the day. So that is something that is an extra activity, but start as an exercise with the gratitude, those little exercises, swinging legs out of bed and looking for the good in the situations. And if you want to supercharge your results, then you can start looking at this bookending business. Now, another thing that I'm so pleased it's come to be, it's come really into the mainstream, is meditation. So meditation is known now as an effective treatment, and I don't know why I'm doing this, because it is actually a treatment for anxiety and insomnia. Now, working in the world of health, you probably know that we can't just go around calling things treatments willy-nilly. They need to be backed up by some serious hardcore research, which, you know, meditation has been building a reputation for being fantastic for pretty much everything, including helping with focus and peak performance at work. So it's a win on every favourite, and it is the Calm app. It is a paid app, but if you go to this, if you go to calm.com/calm health trial, you can get a month free, and nobody pays me anything or gives me anything to recommend it. I've used quite a few, and I'm just saying that this is the one that I like. But they've also got, there's tons of them. And really what guided meditation is, it's 10 minutes and someone is literally guiding you through the process. And the benefit of this is it's meditation for those people who think that they might be rubbish at meditating. And I include myself in that. So what's to know is you will try it, your mind will wander off, you'll be thinking about the shopping list or the car MOT, so bring it back. And you may repeat this a lot. So for all the alphas out there, the point of meditation is not to become really good at it. There's no win except for the benefit to your own physiology and your own mental well-being. So one of the things that it's very good with, some of the things that really keep us in a state of being upset about things, is when we're dwelling on the things that have happened that cannot be changed, or those things that may or may not happen at some point in the future which haven't happened yet and which we have no control over. So meditation has the benefit of keeping you here now, so keeping you in the present, where you'll just be being calm and listen to somebody talking you through all of this stuff. And it's really, really helpful. In fact, it's the quickest way of emptying the stress bucket. So I work with lots of people who are, they're very stressed, and they have their particular health goals, and they're trying to squeeze all sorts of things into their life. And they're taking this, as many more people are finding that they're working from home. This may not be the case for you, but people working at full pelt and then having to go into their actual lives after their jobs, and they're still in this sort of almost frenzied state with the stress of work. So this guided meditation is really good to do, to empty that stress bucket before you go into your life, so that you can show up being the kind of version of you that you want to be in your life. So I'm an absolutely great fan of that. And of course, in any talk about rituals or daily habits, it would be silly not to talk about sleep, since it is so fundamental to everything. So there's a guy called Matthew Walker. He wrote a very interesting book, I think it possibly was maybe the year before last, called Why We Sleep. And we are the only animals who deliberately don't have the right amount of sleep, and there's literally nothing in it for us. There's no biological gain. So there is a your lifestyle and what you eat play a big part. And when you have had the right amount of sleep, you feel much more inclined to live well, to eat well, to move your body. And when you don't, the opposite. So there's lots of things in it for you. So if you're thinking, okay, yes, this is me, what I invite you to do is to, without judgment, again, so there's never any judgment, but it is important to know it's really important to know where you're starting from, like a stake in the ground, because otherwise how will you know whether you've improved? So in my practice, we do this thing called Measure Yourself Medical Outcome Profile, and really that's basically scoring symptoms. So this is why it's really important to know where we're starting from, because you don't know the extent to which, or even if you're improving, if you're not clear where you're starting from and you don't do any kind of check-ins with how things are changing. So without judgment, notice what time you go to bed, what time you get up, what the experience of being in bed is. So is the room dark? Is it not? Is it your pillows? You're waking up like, and just seeing what's there. Now, I have some sleep tips for you. These are the same sleep tips you will have seen in lots of places, because they happen to be very effective. Now, what I know about working with real humans, and many of you who you're, also working with people in your jobs, is, people are people, circumstances are circumstances. Knowing what to do, having the knowledge, isn't what will have you get the result. So yes, consistent schedule. Starting the day with sunlight, avoiding screens an hour and a half before bed. Epsom salts bath, great fan of that. Keeping the bedroom dark, silk eye mask if you're in an urban area and you're not in the luxury of being in the middle of nowhere like most people don't. If it's not dark, get a sleep mask. Exercising, caffeine curfew after 2 o'clock. If you're thinking of going to bed around 10 or 11, then that should be unbreakable. Okay, so knowing what to do is only a small part of it. So if this is you and you think, yeah, sleep is a bit patchy, I invite you to throw everything at it for a week. So choose a week and actually choose it. Decide when that's going to be. Don't have it be, everything will be excellent when this is when, make it an actual week that you're going to run your sleep experiment, which will look like going to bed actually at an appropriate time so you can get the required amount of sleep. So aiming for minimum of, well, most humans need between 7 and 9 hours. And if you've got a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or a Garmin or something that tracks your sleep, you'll know that being geographically in your bed is not the same as actually sleeping. So throwing everything at it to try and get the sleep that you need for a week and see it as being a bit of an experiment. And then you can sit back and you can say, okay, so this is what it looks like when I prioritize my sleep, which is much more compelling because sleep gets a terrible PR. It feels like something that we have to do. We should be doing more of it rather than something that you get to do. So if that's you, try on that as an experiment. Of course, as a nutritionist, I would say that nourishing your body is important. I'm not going to bore you with all the science here, and this isn't the focus today, isn't on eating well, but I can tell you that if you just were to focus on eating real food, things would look very different. So, and I say that without judgment. People make, we all make all kinds of shortcuts, and it's very easy to be having the odd ping meal, and then before you know it, your diet has gone into a place where it's really not serving you. So in terms of what that would look like, what we're really talking about for this sort of emotional, mental, hormonal, energized feelings, getting everything back into balance, looks like eating more carbs that release their energy slowly. So that would look like whole grain versions of things, lots of veggies, and most people don't eat nearly enough. I don't say that to be all judgy. It's just what the situation is. So thinking about releasing the foods that will release their energy more slowly, which will keep your energy levels up throughout the day, and having fewer of those simple carbohydrates. So they would be the really, don't shoot the messenger, but sugar is not your friend for anything, and it's not suddenly become illegal that you should have it. But you'll want to think about how much is in your diet. So for almost any kind of ill, whether it's balancing hormones, whether it's improving mood, whether it's getting more energy, sugar is going to be working against you. So just be mindful about what the current situation is and honest with yourself so you can make any tweaks if you need to. And those white foods, like the white versions of the bread and pasta and rice and couscous and potatoes, if your diet is loaded with those kinds of foods, and as a people, generally as Western nations, are headed more than in generations before towards being a very, very starchy, carb heavy diet, and that has had all kinds of unwanted health complications. So just going back to eating like your grandparents used to eat, making sure that you're getting protein at every meal that might look like fish, chicken, red meat, nuts, seeds, tofu, eggs, those kind of things. That's all really important, along with lots of veggies and a smaller portion of, the potatoes or whatever you have to go on the side. One of the things that's really important for all kinds of well-being, actually, but particularly mental well-being, is eating enough fat. Omega-3 fatty acids are super important. They are very good for boosting mood. There's a ton of research that shows that they are pretty much as good as antidepressants when people are dosed at the right level and without the side effects. So where would you find them? You'd find them in all kinds of oily fish, Sardines, salmon, trout, fresh tuna, halibut, those kinds of foods. You'll also find them in walnuts and on flax seeds and the chia seeds and things like that. So having fat is an important thing, and it's also one of the things that I see people in clinic trying to shortcut, because maybe they've got some weight to lose, and in error they think in cutting out that portion of the diet, that particular type of food, is going to be the magic pill, and it isn't. So I want to leave you with just a thought of where to start, because it's all very conceptual, isn't it? Eat real food. And so where to start would be the first meal of the day. So oftentimes this is the tipping point. If you've worked out what you're going to eat the first point of the day, then other things, it seems to make it a lot easier. So whether you start with a smoothie, which might be, it's not for everyone, but some people like those kind of things. Water, plant-based milk tend to be lower in sugar than the milk sugars in milk. Berries, green stuff like spinach, protein powder. I like to put in things like, have a real witch's brew going on, like a superfood powder, like that dark green powders that are often in the baking aisle or the health aisle in the supermarkets, which are really good for just getting a really concentrated source of ingredients in, because what we're really trying to do is nourish. It might be you pop in some seeds, a bit of nut butter, things like that. Eggs, I am a fan. Eggs on wholemeal toast, any kind, pretty much, and porridge and overnight oats. So particularly in this horrible winter weather, that porridge is an excellent way to start. But where are we going with all of this? So I promised you something on rituals, and I wanted, to just put in mind how things can end up being. So, this sort of action planning, this creating a routine is the nearest thing that you'll find to creating that extra 25th hour in the day. So if this is you, then really looking at creating a pretty bulletproof routine would be really helpful. So, the alarm wakes you up, you put about, I don't know, let's say 60 minutes, get out of bed, showered, dressed, etc. before you leave for work. You would have got up earlier, but you were caught watching Netflix or Prime or, Sky or whatever the night before, so you didn't. And it's no problem because you've got plenty of time, right? But then you find, you don't have any clean socks, the coffee pot isn't on, someone ate the last, I don't know, piece of bread, you don't have any clean coffee cups because you forgot to start the dishwasher, your phone isn't charged. It's very easy to start that day in a really, really stressful way, and that's even without taking into consideration all the other variables, which might be, and the dog needs feeding, and the car's broken down, and something with your partner or something with your kids. So can you see that having a good routine is really super beneficial? So when you have a routine that works for your life, then you can feel pretty smug on the inside, leaving the house in the day, pretty unstoppable. And ultimately, you're starting the day in a different way. It's like you're wearing a different pair of glasses because you feel less stressed, you get better results, and you can probably also get to your goals faster. Now, what is important to know here is that because there's limited time in the morning, right? And it's limited time in the evening, but a really great morning routine starts with what goes on in the evening, because when we take the time to set things up properly, then that's when the magic gets created. So this is another exercise where I'm inviting you to take an action which looks like just evaluating what's currently going on. So absolutely not judging, just looking and seeing what is there. So that might be in the morning, this isn't how it should be, but it might be, the reality of what you're doing, checking social media, pouring coffee, taking the dog out, checking out the news headlines, taking a shower. And then in the evening, it might look like you're putting the dishes in the dishwasher, having some wine, chilling out, watching the TV, taking the dog out, brushing your teeth. So get all of those things down. So if you know that the structure of your day isn't 100% working for you, then doing this exercise to plan that routine will be really, really important. Now you'll want to, so you'll have what your current routine is, and then I want you to think about, what is it that you want for yourself? What is it that you want for your life? What's important to you? And why is it important? Why do you want those things? So thinking about maybe what your top 3 goals are and why you want those things. So you can do a brainstorm as to, what are your goals? What are the top things that you want and why you want them? And again, like I mentioned with the self-care list, and again with the sort of, the energetic scales, it's worth maybe doing this once every quarter. And then what you'll do with the information is remember those micro commitments. So you're looking for 1 or 2 actions that you can either add in to your routine or you can swap for another action. So it's always tempting, particularly in January when we're thinking resolutions and what have you. By this point in January, many people have given up on their resolutions, but this is because often we set the bar too high and then it's really hard to keep up that enthusiasm and that motivation. So what are the 1 or 2 steps that you can add in to take you closer to your goals? And of course, I mentioned, there were some times when, things feel out of control, things feel overwhelming, things feel very difficult. If this is a recurring theme for you, it's really worth seeking out the person in your organisation who you can talk to, who can put you in touch with the people who can provide support. But of course, it's what it's like to be human, is that we have bad days. So it's really worth thinking about creating an action plan now. So one of the things that you can have as your action plan when you're having a really bad day is you can do some of the things on that self-care list. So that can really work. But there's some other things which I am a great fan of. So I mentioned that Calm app earlier. They have something called Panic SOS, which is 10 minutes and it's of slow breathing, basically. A kind of guided meditation, but focus on breathing. So there's a Chinese saying where it says, if you know the art of deep breathing, you have the strength and wisdom of 10 tigers. So obviously you're breathing every second of the day. What I'm talking about is this sort of this intentional changing of your breathing patterns. So that can be really helpful. So the NHS has its own breathing exercises for stress, so you can Google that and you can find out some really helpful exercises. There's a company called nopanic.org and they have an anxiety breathing animation. So as I was saying right at the very beginning, what I'd love for you to start, and I will send the PDF of the questions through so that you can do that little journaling exercise just to work out where you're starting from. And then just be thinking about what are the important things to you? Because everyone will be different. You can't possibly do everything. So what is it for you? Is it a bit chaotic in the morning? Do you need to really hone in on creating routine? Is it that sleep is really out of whack? Is it that you're not doing anything for yourself? So remember that self-care, however much you like a nicely pressed sheet, laundry doesn't cut it. Is there something in the world of self-care that you want to do? And I'd really love for you to take one thing and do that. And then over time, you can look and see, after you've made a positive change in that area, what else you can do. Because this layering of habits is how you get your life to go more in the direction of where you want it to be. And that's all my teaching for today. I'm interested if anyone's got any questions for me. I'm looking down at my